Thank you very much. I'm blessed to have heard that twice this morning. A few of you who are here for the earlier service as well have heard that too. And so thank you for sharing that with us. And we look forward to a few more songs next week. Not to put any pressure on you, but that was very good. So we anticipate the same for next week. Thank you so much. Good stuff. Last week, if you weren't here, I talked about a God who is expectant. And even if you were here, I talked about a God who is expectant, all right? And so I pick up on that theme just a little bit here as we begin today. And if you recall, I mentioned within the sermon that if you want to get people's attention through the week, you might share with them that you are expecting. Recall that? And some of you, as I gave a little bit of an assignment to go ahead who do the Facebook thing, to say on your Facebook, hey, I'm expecting, or Asbury Church is expecting. And bless your heart, some of you, Jan Utter, who did that. Now, Jan was the first person I saw who did it. It said, Asbury Church is expecting. And so then you see these little comments like, what's she talking about? What? And I was just putting one on when I saw yours. Under mine, I said this. I said, can't keep it under wraps any longer. Asbury Church is expecting. So then I get a few things. And then Kane, I noticed, had put it on a little later, and same type of thing, and more comments. What are you talking about? And then pretty soon, is Leslie going to have a baby? Congratulations. We talked about it in our Sunday school class. Sometimes babies come upon us unexpectedly. Well, so who knows? And then, let's see, there were some other folks. Susan had it on, and then, so it was interesting just to see the comments. And then there was this couple that was visiting the last couple of weeks, actually, from Western Kansas, who were here, who Mary Lou and I know. And she's a young mom. She has 4 children in 6 years. And at the end of where I said Asbury Church is expecting, she said, me too. Well, social media. All those folks out in Western Kansas go, Gina, what? And she's just smiling. She's not talking about baby. She's talking about what we're talking about, expecting God to do some incredible things, et cetera, et cetera. But it's wonderful to see the door of opportunity that opens when you do something like this. It gives you an opportunity to share some things, to have some comments, to share what it is that we at Asbury are doing, that we're talking about a God that we expect, or a God who is expectant in the sense He's come to forgive us of our sins and save us, et cetera. We expect God to do wonderful things, to do great things. We expect God to change the lives of those whom we love, including our own lives. And so those are some of the comments, or some of the conversation that we've been able to have as a result. But then I thought about it a little bit more and think, okay, but are we really expecting? Are we? Or are we, depending where you emphasize it, all right? Or am I? Or, if I ask the question, are you? And what is it that you are expecting? Do you really expect anything? Because you and I know this. Let's just be honest, because we're a part of this race called sinful humanity. And there are many times over the years, there have been times over the years where we just merely show up on Sunday morning and do our thing, same old, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. Just like I said last week, didn't we do Christmas a year ago? That type of thing. And so we just kind of do the same old. And so do we really expect anything different? And if we don't, we will get the results of what we expect, right? Probably nothing different. So my prayer is that we would indeed expect something of God, and that we're praying for that. I was praying about that this morning and thinking, what is it, God, that, I really do expect you to show up this morning. I do expect you to tug on people's hearts, including my own, those kind of things. Now, it's not like we sing, all I expect for Christmas is my whatever, We usually sing the all I want for Christmas, and then it's the old song, I want my 2 front teeth or whatever. There are some similarities in the expectations and in the wants, I know, but there are some differences as well. And last week I spoke about expectations, and I'll share a little bit about some of the wants of Christmas here, and especially one want as we move forward. But the context today is in the theme of this, a dangerous God. A dangerous God. Now, when I was putting this together, I thought, boy, this doesn't sound very Christmassy. Think about it. A dangerous God. If I'm up here, that's why I didn't really run with it with those kids for children's time to say, we're going to talk about a dangerous God today. And they're all going, oh, what are you talking about? I think we'll talk about it here more so, and they'll experience it, won't they, as they go through life. But this dangerous God, after all, when we think about the kids and us, for most of us are talking about this little precious little baby born in a manger, soft and cuddly, swaddling clothes. Everybody's happy. We've got sheep that smile. I raise sheep. I know it's a lie, but we have sheep that smile. We have horses and donkeys. We even have a little lamb here. It's just happy to be there, and everything's just tranquil, and it's a silent night, which I think whoever wrote the song was not there, because my guess is it wasn't such a silent night. But there's a person who's not here today, I won't say this person's name, who argues with me all the time when I talk about it. Probably wasn't a silent night. Yes, it was! Yes, it was! Well, it probably wasn't. But, just because of all the things that were going on, and those of you who've had babies know it wasn't overly silent in the room when you were giving birth, right? We won't go into details. But, so we find ourselves with the image here, but yet talking about a dangerous God. And what does the word dangerous have to do, though, with God anyways? What does it have to do with Christmas? What does it have to do with God at Christmas? So let's talk about that a little bit. And I want to read from a passage. Those of you who went to the Sunday school class, this is a totally different passage. This is a passage I came across this last week in some of my own devotions from Isaiah chapter 64, 1 through 4, okay? Isaiah 64, 1 through 4. If you're following along on the app, you have this as well. 64, 1 through 4. Now, Isaiah, it's towards the end of the book of Isaiah. It's a context of calling for God's final judgment and redemption and so forth of a people who've been pretty messed up with regards to disobedience and so forth. But there's this call for God to do something. There's a want here. Oh, that you, God, would rend the heavens and what? Come down. That the mountains would tremble before you, as when fire sets twigs ablaze and causes water to boil. What? Come down to make your name known to your enemies and cause the nations to quake before you. For when you did awesome things that we did not expect, you what? You came down, and the mountains trembled before you. Since ancient times no one has heard, no ear has perceived, no eye has seen any God beside you who acts on behalf of those who wait for Him. Man, that's a great text. That is so good. There is so much there, along with all the other stuff that we're reading for the study itself and the class that we're doing and so forth. So I want to begin with one. I am going to use a couple of the themes that they're talking about in the book, and the first of that being the dangerous nature of God. Okay? Now, Russell Hall and I in the early service were sitting right before the first service was starting, kind of talking about the world we live in. And it's a little chaotic, right? This world we live in at times feels like it's spinning out of control. There is corruption and oppression of all sorts and injustice. And, you think about the political correctness run amok. My gosh, it's like people, do you not have jobs? I mean, is this all you do is sit around all day and think of things that you can ban? Like Rudolph? I mean, Rudolph? We're going to ban Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, because he's a bully and all these other, or there's bullying and all sorts of other kind of things. And we're going to ban nativity scenes. That's been going on for some time. Just like, okay, really? And then we're going to ban at this time of year, and I've always harped on this, and I've backed off a little bit, but I've harped on this because we do want happy holidays. But doggone it, I want a Merry Christmas. And I'll say it. Merry Christmas, all right? I'm a Christian. And it's okay to say Merry Christmas. And you know what? This morning at 19 degrees, Baby, it's cold outside. You all know what I'm talking about on some of the silliness that's going on around us. Now, it's not like we try and get up in the morning and think of a way we can offend somebody. We get that. But my gosh, just being alive offends a lot of people anymore. My being alive offends many people, I have found out. It's just amazing. Well, here our world is spinning out of control, and then we have more serious things like the wars, civil wars around the world, murder and human trafficking, which goes on. My heart breaks over that type of thing. Sexual immorality, running amok, and pride and arrogance, on we go. And as Christians, and not even just as Christians, but for sure as Christians, we find there's a battle out there, right? I mean, for those, when I was in seminary, they didn't want to sing Onward Christian Soldiers because that was too militant. And I thought, have you ever been out in the real world before? Have you ever been in the real world to know that it is rather militant out there? It is a battle. There's a battle for our souls, by the way. Now, we want, as Christians, we want to be victorious. And not just that we're better than somebody else, but we want to live in victory. You know, page 370 in the hymnal, Victory in Jesus. We want victory. We want to win the battle. We want to experience peace on earth, goodwill towards men, women, humanity, all right? But we have found that we cannot do it on our own. We have tried. It has not taken us to that peace. In fact, it's deepened the mess. And so we, like Isaiah, say this. This is our want. God, come down. Come on down. It's like a game show, but much more serious. God, come on down. Now, here's the deal. As I thought about this, putting this together, we better be careful of what we ask for. Right? If we're saying, God, come on down, and He shows up, what are you going to do when He shows up right here? Here. All right? Come on down. Now, I like it. I like the language. I mean, it's just kind of me. I like it here. But just, Isaiah, other prophets, writers in the Psalms, it's a little Clint Eastwoodish. You remember last week I talked about Clint Eastwood? I like, throw a little Clint Eastwood in the Bible, It justifies some of my thinking. Now, don't push me too far. I don't want to get too carried away. But, there's some of that feels good. Come on, God, let's go. Open up the heavens. Come on down and cause the mountains to shake and to tremble. Come as a consuming fire. Come down in such a way that the enemies will know that you, God, have arrived. May the people quake in their boots. And then we find out we are the people. All right? Before a holy God. Now, we hear in this to come on down and to do these wonderful things. But God has done these wonderful things. It is reminiscent already of what God has done in coming down in such a way to cause the mountains to shake, to earth to tremble. Let's think about the Exodus events. Think about Mount Sinai. Think about this guy named Moses. Think about all of this. It shook. There was noise. If you watch the Ten Commandments, you know it's true, right? Charlton Heston. Well, I mean, you just see this. And if you recall the reminiscent of that Mount Sinai event, of the Exodus events, post-Exodus events, there was this of do not touch the mountain. Don't touch it. It is dangerous. It's a holy mountain. God is there. Don't do it. This is God we're talking about. And I realize everybody wants the warm, loving, gracious, forgiving God. I get that. But included in the warm, loving, gracious, forgiving God is the God who is all-powerful, who is sovereign, who is holy, who is just, who is righteous, who is King, Lord, ruler, sovereign over all, powerful. This is a mighty, dangerous God who comes to us and enters into our world. Now, I realize the context here in this particular text of Isaiah is about final judgment and about final redemption of God's people. But we see that occurring in the past, in the present, and so forth. God is continually doing this. He is coming, and He has come to us. Ultimately, we know He's already come to us. In Advent, we talk about two comings here. One is that Jesus comes. God comes to us in the flesh in the incarnation. But in final victory, ultimately, God comes and will set up reign forever and ever and ever, period. Okay? So we have this God coming into our lives. And the weird part about it, the strange part maybe, is that could he do it all on his own? Absolutely. As far as the saving of the world and straightening us all out, but he chooses us. He chooses us to do it. That's the crazy part. Look at each other and go, are you kidding me? Turn to your neighbor and he chose you? And they say, he chose you? And really, and then you look at the pastor, whoa, he chose you? That's scary. But here we are, chosen by God, to be used by God as we say yes to him. Now, if you think about Isaiah, if you go back to Isaiah, the very first chapter, we already begin with a people who are disobedient, who are rebellious against the very God who chose them as his own people. And it starts out in Isaiah 1 about a people who the sin has infected them from the very tops of their heads to the very bottoms of their feet. And the writer says that even the donkeys, even the oxen know their master, but you don't even know your master. And so it goes on, and it's talking about the disobedience that's going to lead to consequences. All of a sudden, Isaiah finds himself in the middle of this vision in chapter 6. Chapter 6. And he's before this holy God who's blinding him by the light, his holiness, the train of his robe off of the throne, etc., and you can see the angels and so forth. And here's Isaiah, he's going, in chapter 6, he's going, woe is me, I'm a man of unclean lips, standing before this holy God. And God works through these angels to touch his lips with the burning coals, if you recall. And here Isaiah had been, in essence, repenting, and he forgives him by the purification of those coals. And then in the conversation, there comes this question. Because of the sin and the effects of sin and all of this that covers the land, God is asking this question, whom shall I send? And in the Godhead, who will go for us? And Isaiah says this, here am I, send me. Whew. I don't know about you. Do you suppose he really knew what he was talking about? Do you suppose he really knew what he was getting himself into? This is a danger. This is a dangerous nature of God as far as his holiness is concerned, choosing a guy to go out into an unholy world and share that holiness with others to set them apart, ultimately with rescue and so forth, the forgiveness of sin and those kind of things. So what we see is that following and obeying a dangerous God is indeed dangerous. Now, don't get all scared here, all right? There's more to the story as we work our way through here. But there's some danger in it because it's a dangerous God. And you know what we do? I didn't tell this to the early service, but what we do is we poo-poo this God that we serve. And we just think that we can just think God's going to come down here and grab our hand and we're going to walk merrily down the street and he needs us to get it all done. He doesn't need us at all. He chooses us. But we walk merrily down the street and everybody's happy, and he's not going to call us because he loves us. He's not going to call us into account. There's not going to be consequences because he loves us. And so we use this umbrella of God's love to justify sin. You see what happens? And so here we find out that this is a holy God calling a person into holiness to reach out to an unholy world, and that is dangerous. Think about these people. Now, you in the Sunday school class know about this already. But Abraham, think about Moses, think about Jonah, think about Paul, think about Isaiah. Think about each one of these. Abraham, before he was even Abraham, was Abram, and God says in chapter 12 of Genesis, go to a land I will show you, and that's it. Now, if you get a letter from God, or if you're friended by God on Facebook, like the TV show, and you'll get the note that says, I want you to go to this land, I'll tell you later where you're going, but get on gone. Well, where is this? Where is this? And all you get here in return is go. That's it. Dangerous. Leaving all the comfort of home, all the family, everything to go. Moses, of course, confronted by a burning bush. How many times has that happened in your life lately? And so they could have really ran with that in George Bush's funeral service this last week, right? The burning bush. But Karen got it. But just think about it. Here's this burning bush account, and now all of a sudden Moses, who just killed somebody back in Egypt, is supposed to go back to Egypt and bring people out, the redemption, to bring his people out, etc. You think about Jonah, man, here's this guy who's called to go to Nineveh. He hates Nineveh. He hates the people of Nineveh. They tried killing people like him. They're enemies. He'd rather go to Tarsus, and he's going to go off and get swallowed by a big old fish. You know that whole story. Well, he goes to Nineveh and then serves him right. They repent, and now he's got to go, oh, great. But God uses him. And then you got Isaiah. I mean, you just have one after another, and then it comes down to you and me. You think, oh, man, God's calling us to what? Where? How? All those questions. It is kind of scary, isn't it, if you think about it? What's scary is, one, like Abram, is the unknown, being called to go somewhere where you don't know where you're going. And I don't mean physically, just location-wise, but just whatever it is in circumstances. And then the flip side of this is the known. God calls, and you know where you're going, or you know what you're supposed to do, and you're going, man, I don't want to do that, right? And so it's both the known and the unknown. I think, didn't Mark Twain say it wasn't the unknown, it was the known that would get him in trouble, kind of worried about. So it's dangerous. But that's our calling. I mean, it really is. We're all called to minister in the name of Jesus Christ. Now, I remember, I told this to the earlier folks too, but I remember, going to annual conference for all these years, year after year, And I found out that one of the great places to get sermon illustrations, believe it or not, is standing in line in the bathroom. Yep. Because there's always conversation in the bathroom. Right? So, many times it's about the last speaker. Depends which stall you're listening, is how they like the speaker. And all, just it depends, but there's conversation always going on. I'll never forget one year, and it's been a while back, but two of my colleagues, two peers, pastors, were talking about missions and serving in a place and the possibility of serving in another place if, and one of them said, oh, I can't go there. I mean, you could get killed there. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, then in my mind, I said, then you're not willing to go, right? That's what you're saying? You're not willing to go. If God calls you, you will say no. I didn't say this. This was in my head. And so at that point, it's bothered me ever since. I mean, I don't know how many years ago that's been, but it's bothered me ever since, and I vowed that I would never say that. Should God call me to a place that may be of that kind of danger? Now, it may be an honest God. I'm not sure about this, but I just want to make sure, But you could get killed. Ask Jesus. Because Jesus found himself on a dangerous mission, all right? Jesus' dangerous mission. That's the next point that we're looking at. So if you go back to this whole Clint Eastwood thing, Isaiah crying out, God, bust open the heavens. And it's kind of like he's wanting God to come down and plant his feet on top of the mountain and go, make my day. Right? I'm glad I'm here for you today, Karen. But make my day, And so Isaiah then begins to refer to God doing some of these awesome things in the past. The things that he's calling on him to do now, but yet has already done in the past. And he said, you've done these things, these incredible, mighty, powerful things in ways that we just did not expect. This is not how we put it on our day planner back in the day when we did day planners. It's not the way we put it on our little iPhones or whatever it is we have now. It's not the way we expected. And all of a sudden we realize there is a theme here that God works in unexpected ways, right? We've been talking about that. There was no expectation of God working the way he did to redeem his people out of Egypt, that they'd bring a guy who stuttered around, who was a sheep herder, Moses I'm talking about, to come down and then to confront the Pharaoh of all people, and then all the plagues, and ultimately a 10th plague. And if you put the blood over the top of the door, then the angel of death would pass over. This was not in their plan. They had no idea this was going to happen. And then in ways, they get to this big body of water, and oh boy, we're done. And it all of a sudden opens up, and who expects that kind of stuff? So, God working in unexpected ways. I like this. Who would have thunk? That's my language. But who would have thunk that God would do the same as it pertained to the coming of a Savior? Coming in a way that we did not, that we least expected, if you will. Bust open the heavens? Think about it. But that's what happened when Jesus came. The heavens busted open. Philippians 2, in the great kenosis passage, they call it, the emptying, where Jesus left his home in glory. It says he could have hung on to that, but he chose to let go and to enter into our world and to take on human flesh, the incarnation, to enter as a baby. How crazy is that? It makes no sense. To enter as a baby. But that's what he did. And as he was born, you remember the skies burst open, and all of a sudden there's the multitudes of angels having a great praise and worship service, inviting the shepherds to sing along. How cool is that? Nations trembled. They quaked, if you will. Well, you think about a baby, you don't think a baby being very dangerous. Not very dangerous. Then the question is, or is it? For sure, the baby was not what was expected, and yet we see that this baby was an incredible threat. First of all, to the forces of darkness, if you will. I talked about a spiritual battle earlier. It really is a spiritual battle. Satan's followers, they knew. When Jesus comes into the world, when Jesus comes into your world, friends, they knew. And so they knew that there was a spiritual battle at hand, and that's why Paul would say to those who seek to be followers of Jesus, he says, put on the spiritual armor of God, Ephesians chapter 6. Put it on, because this is a battle. It's not flesh and blood, but it's of the principalities and the rulers of this present darkness, etc., that kind of thing. And so he says, we've got this battle before us. And so there was this incredible threat by this baby to the followers, if you will, of Satan. And then Jesus later on, as he grew up, he said this in Matthew 10. He says, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. Wait a minute. That makes no sense. Peace on earth, goodwill, right? Joy to the world, the Prince of Peace. And then he just says, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I come to bring a sword? Well, it's a spiritual battle, friends. And Jesus was getting prepared and telling us to get prepared and put the spiritual armor on, because the battle is before us. And so we have a spiritual battle. We also have this other battle. Those of you in the Sunday school class know we're talking about Herod in the whole socio-economic political system with Herod, who is the king, great Herod. Now, this guy was Mr. Paranoid with a capital para, okay? This guy killed his own wife and killed two of his sons. And if you've ever seen the movie The Nativity, I think it's a really good movie to watch in this time of year. You can see that this guy was nuts. He was paranoid. And he heard about this other king that had arrived. You can read about that in Matthew 2. And so he, of course, he does his political thing about, please tell us where he is so that we may worship too. Well, a new king's in town. There's a new kid in town who he's heard is the king, and he wants to eliminate him. And the danger is there because now all of a sudden he's sent out an order to kill all the boys under 2. Sounds dangerous, doesn't it? Well, it was. So we have that, and then we have the religious establishment of the scribes and the Pharisees and the leaders of the time who Jesus shows up, and all of a sudden their expectations are blown out of the water. This isn't what a Messiah looks like. We talked about that last week. He has the wrong messianic credentials. He can't serve here. He's not our Savior. So Jesus enters our time and space to destroy the works of the devil and all these other things that are a part of it. We can read that in 1 John 3:8. It says, the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. I mean, if anybody asks you, well, why did Jesus come? That's a pretty good answer. To destroy the devil's work. Well, I don't believe in the devil. Well, I can tell by looking at you there is one. You could. Well, be careful about saying that. Probably not good advice, but I mean, it's just, once you deny the spiritual forces out there, you're going to find yourself dealing with them. All right? So we have that. And so it's dangerous work that's before us. Now, one thing about it is it's dangerous to oppose Jesus. We know that. But it's also dangerous to follow Jesus. So what do? Well, you follow him. It may be dangerous, but he'll be with you. But you think about those who follow Jesus. You think about their lives. You think about Mary and Joseph, and you think about, wow, what do you mean? They didn't really follow Jesus. Well, yeah, they really did. I mean, it wasn't part of their plan to be like Leslie, to have a baby and all, right? Now, this unexpected baby, they follow in obedience. May it be as the Lord has said, Mary says. And Joseph follows along. All that goes on, and the danger of that is that she could have been stoned, right? Could have been killed, and all that goes on with that. And you see the disciples and how they left everything to follow Jesus. They left all that they knew to follow Jesus. And ultimately, what did it cost them? Their lives, ultimately, when it's all said and done. The only one that tradition at least says that lived till his own death was that of John, natural cause. Paul, well, we know about that, about Paul who was Saul, who follows Jesus, and the danger. Every place he went, there were people trying to eliminate him. Wesley, you've heard of Wesley, the founder of Methodism. I mean, Wesley, when he began his ministry, he was from the prim and proper where he got up into the pool pit and wore the nice robe and everything looked really good. And there's times for that. I don't argue that at all. It's just the thing that he knew that the people were out there and they weren't coming in here. So he went out there, began to preach to the oppressed, to those in the jails. He stood on his daddy's grave and preached to the people out there. People were coming to faith, but people didn't like that because we'd never done it that way before, so they took rocks and threw at him to kill him. It's a little dangerous out there. You've heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, many of you. The cost of discipleship during the time of Hitler. And he stood up to Hitler and said, this is not right. Cost him his life to follow Jesus. You talk about, Karen, we talk about in mission, James Kong Bell, and some of the stories that we hear from our missionaries and how that one was, I think it was just last year when he was in that bus and they were shooting with all the bullets hitting everywhere but him, and how he was able to get off of the bus and to hide in the weeds. It's dangerous, friends. It's dangerous. Ed Robb said in the study that an encounter with Jesus is always dangerous because he has big things in mind for us. This isn't a little tiny God. This is a big God who wants us to be a part of big things. And it's probably going to be more than we ever dreamed of or expected. Well, you all know that, I think, as you walk in obedience, that it's always more than you thought, more than you expected. There's a call to expect the unexpected. It's not always about being comfortable. We are blessed. Let's own that, all right? We are a blessed people today in this country with the freedom that we have, even in the midst of the chaos of our country. But for us to sit in here, we have electricity on, the heat is on, you all look great. As I said in Sunday school, you even smell good today. Everything's good. Really, for the most part, things are good. Now, I don't know the deep, dark secrets of what's going on in your own life necessarily, but for the most part, compared to those that I've just mentioned here, our danger is a little different. But yet it's still dangerous because we're still called to be obedient, to be holy before a holy God, to be separate in the midst of all that's going on around us in our culture. I remember, in the sense of not always being comfortable, not making sense, that whole Genesis 12, go to a land where I will show you. And when Mary Lou and I were called into ministry, at least we did know. We went to Chicago, but we didn't know. Go to a land. We went to a land we knew not. And back then, it was one of those things where, we honestly just up and sold everything and left. It was the craziest thing. We look back now and go, my gosh, what were we thinking? Would we do that now? Mitch Reese and I, our DS, have talked about that many times. Would we do what we did 25 years ago now? It may be the year. Fasten your seatbelts. Who knows? So we move to the last point. If I said finally, you'd all be gathering all your stuff, but I won't say finally yet. So just hang on. We're about there. But the thing about it is that God is wonderfully dangerous or dangerously wonderful. You can use that either way, all right? And this dangerous God has entered into our dangerous world. If you have the app, that word needs to be inserted. Dangerous world by sending his Son on a dangerous mission, which includes the dangerous calling of following him. Gary Crook in the Sunday school class said, I never heard that before. And I said, that's because I just wrote it this week. It's one of those things where I was thinking about this whole danger that we're called into, but think about it. This dangerous God has entered into our dangerous world, okay, by sending his Son on a dangerous mission, which includes the dangerous calling, all of us, of following him. It includes the unexpected that he would use people like you and me. You see, people are sinful and broken and messed up and confused. Yes, I'm talking about you and me. And if we're going to reach out to sinful, broken, messed up, and confused people, why not use people who are sinful, messed up, broken, and confused, who have actually been pulled out of that pit and rescued from it so that we can share that there is hope with others, or to others. We've been rescued. We've been saved. We've been restored. We've been empowered by the Holy Spirit that we might be used by him. Now, the thing we have to be careful of is just because we are saved, it doesn't mean the notch on the belt and now we call it a day and all is good and we get back and we just take it easy and take a nap. We are not to sit idly by. Okay? People out there are in danger. Right? In this community are in danger. They need us to throw them a rope of rescue. And thus it's a calling out of our comfort zone into the danger zone, if you will. And so I preached a series here a few years back called Going Nike in a Lazy Boy World. But if you think about that, think about it. The lazy boy is where the church has been far too long. Sitting back, feet propped up, taking it easy with the clicker. Click, 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 click. And Jesus says, I have called you actually to do something about it. And I have empowered you to do something about it. Whatever it is. The it could be right here, right in our sphere of influence, wherever it is. It may be somewhere totally out there somewhere. Missions, I don't know what it is. Whatever it is for us. But we've all been called to be a part of this hope, even in the midst of the danger. So as our praise team comes up to close out now, I want to read the last two verses one more time from Isaiah 64. Hear these words once again at the end of this, where it says this, verses 3 and 4. For when you did awesome things, hear that about God? You remember Rich Mullins, our God is an awesome God? For when you did awesome things that we did not expect, you what? You came down. You came down. And the mountains trembled before you. Since ancient times, no one has heard, no ear has perceived, no eye has seen any God beside you who acts on behalf of those who wait for him. In the Hebrew, the word wait means hope. It's an interchangeable word. Those that wait upon the Lord, those who hope in the Lord, that's what we're talking about. Isaiah 40 talks about it. So Advent includes the waiting, but it's active waiting. It's not just sitting on the lazy boy. It also includes the doing. We have the great expectation along with the danger that go hand in hand to reach out and meet and invite people into a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, to pull them out of the danger, that indeed then they would experience peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Let's pray. God, thank you for your word. Thank you for the text that's here before us. There's a lot here and so much we could talk about, but it's enough for now. It's enough to stir our hearts, enough to challenge us, enough to call us into places where maybe we've never been before. Lord, as we think about your calling in our lives, we know that you, Lord Jesus, left your home in glory to enter into this dangerous world. You didn't have to. We didn't deserve it, but because of your love for us, you chose to do so out of obedience. You entered into this dangerous world on a dangerous mission. Indeed, you gave your life for us, that we might have life, ultimately. And so thank you for that. I pray, Lord, that we be mindful of the danger that we find ourselves in. And I don't mean that in a way that we are to be scared or anything, but just the reality of that life is difficult. There's struggles out there. And so I pray that we'd be aware of that. But I'd also pray that, Lord, as Christians, that we not just be those who sit idly by, but that we would be reminded that you have chosen the church, the very body of Christ, to reach people for you, to pull them out of danger. So help us, just as Isaiah was called, that we would be a people that say, here we are, send us. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to sing that song.